Hi, welcome back for this session where we will be looking at how life depends on water. So we will be looking at life depends on hydrogen bonds in water. Life depends on hydrogen bonds in water. As we looked in the previous presentations, we saw that water is very essential for life processes, and some of the reasons as to why it is very essential is basically because of the fact that it has these hydrogen bonds. So an individual hydrogen bond is just 20 times weaker than a typical covalent bond. So if we took a hydrogen bond and we're trying to compare it to a covalent bond, then it would be 20 times weaker in terms of strength. It would be 20 times weaker in terms of strength. But a typical, though relatively strong, this bond here, which we are calling hydrogen bond, though relatively strong in a lot of molecules, because we expect that we are having here many molecules of water. So what happens that they are relatively strong. They are relatively strong among water molecules. So divided we are weak, but when we are united we will be very strong. So the same thing applies here. So as a result, a lot of energy is needed to overcome the attraction among water molecules. So for you to overcome these bonds between water molecules, you need a lot of energy. So as a result, a lot of energy is required. A lot of energy is required to overcome attractions among water molecules. This tells us why, for example, we as organisms are able to survive in room temperature. So water is a liquid at the temperature that supports most life on Earth. So water is able to support most life on Earth. So it's able to support life on Earth because it is normally a liquid, because it's normally a liquid. Imagine if it happens that now all the water in our bodies freezes. So if the water freezes, then we are going to be in trouble because we will also freeze to death. So one of the very specific characteristics of water is that water has a high specific heat capacity. So one, it has a high specific heat capacity. By high specific heat capacity, I mean that chemical energy in the cell, I mean that water resists changes in temperature. Water resists changes in temperature. Water resists changes in temperature. Because of this resistance, we can see that organisms will survive because of this resistance. So this property is very important in cells. For example, this property is very important in cells. The process that produces usable chemical energy in cells releases a great deal of heat, for example, and water absorbs this heat. Water absorbs this heat, which helps to regulate cell temperatures. So this property is very important. How is this property very important? One is that this is a very important property in cells. So for cell structure, as we looked at earlier, for biological processes, like for example, the process that produces, we know, the process that produces usable chemical energy in cells. Chemical energy in cells produces a great deal of energy, releases a great deal of heat. So as you can see from here, all this is water, meaning that if we are to live in this world, then we have to depend on water. So we will be looking at these characteristics. Let's go through here and see how this works. For example, this ability of water to flow easily over another water is also just because of the characteristic of water. So if we are looking at water molecules, then we are having these hydrogen bonds connecting from one molecule to another. As we saw, these bonds are weak, but in general they are very strong and very difficult to break. So water is a universal solvent. Water is during cohesion and adhesion, it's responsible for cohesion and adhesion. Water is responsible for cohesion and adhesion. high surface tension, high heat capacity. So we have already discussed what it means by high heat capacity. Then the changes in density. So all these are properties of water. All these are properties of water. So when we say water is a universal solvent, we mean that majority of what we know is able to dissolve in the water. So when materials dissolve, like if you pour salt into the water, then these polar molecules of salt and the water molecules will attract each other. That is why salt is able to dissolve in water. So this is a sodium chloride molecule. Here it has negative, and here we are having our positive hydrogens. So when they come into contact, they break the sodium chloride molecule, and this is what we mean by the water dissolving. So what is another property is cohesion and adhesion. We said for cohesion, for example, we said for cohesion, normally what happens is that water molecules are able to pull one another so that the positive parts are able to be pulled or to attract the negative parts of the water, and this makes the water to be able to flow, And when we are looking at adhesive property, then we are talking about water particles being able to attach them onto the vessels or the container in which they are put, and this adhesion or attraction towards the walls helps water, for example, or liquid to flow within the blood vessels, and not only the blood vessels, even when water is being absorbed by plants from the soil, it uses the same advantage. So it will use the advantage of cohesion so that one water molecule will be pulling onto each other, and at the same time to the walls. Then another property of water, basically these are the main properties, though the other properties can just come in, but we have only 4 main properties. You can see, like here we have surface tension. So what brings about the surface tension? It's basically when the when the water molecules are attracted onto each other, they form a sort of a skin on top of the water. This sort of a skin is what we call surface tension. And because of surface tension, you can see like this insect is able to land and move in water. In fact, in our day-to-day life, we use this ability to allow us travel on top of water. If we take advantage of this density and surface tension to travel on water. So we will discuss bits by bits all of these. We will be looking at them in small details. You can see high heat capacity. It means that it needs a lot of energy for you to break apart water molecules because of the hydrogen bonds which attract onto each other. Because of this, we say it is difficult, but this is of an advantage to living organisms. Because of this, living organisms are able to survive because materials are able to be transported within the systems. Biological processes still go on and so forth. So here we have fishes in the water. So here we have density of water is based on temperature. So water also helps maintain density. We said here that when it is very cold during winter, the water on the surface will freeze and create a barrier so that it will protect the water below, and this helps these organisms that live here to survive. So let's continue here a little bit to explain what we mean here. Let's continue here to explain what we mean here. For example, we had adhesion, the attraction among cohesion. We had cohesion, which we call attraction among molecules of a substance. Attraction among molecules of a substance. In this case, the substance we are talking about here was water. And we saw that cohesion from hydrogen bonds makes water molecules stick to each other. This makes water molecules stick to each other. This sticking to each other is very important because it brings about or produces surface tension, which makes a kind of a skin. So this produces surface tension. This produces surface tension. Then adhesion. Adhesion, the attraction among adhesion. The attraction among molecules of different substances. Among molecules of different substances. The example we looked at here was blood vessel. Was blood vessel and water. So the water molecules attach themselves to the blood vessels or to the walls of the plant. In this case, when we're talking of the plant, we are basically talking about the xylem tissue, So as water flows through the xylem, it also goes through the same thing. In the next video, we will be looking at how materials dissolve and what is the importance of materials dissolving in water and so forth.